Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Welcome to the Cortland City Mayoral Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cortland County in collaboration with the Cortland Voice. In light of concerns about COVID-19 and the Delta variant, we are hosting candidates via Zoom and streaming forums to Facebook, facebook.com/Cortland Voice for the public. The forums will also be archived on YouTube for future viewing. We'll have a few words from Tim Bennett, the owner and publisher, right here.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Once again, welcome everyone to the League of Women Voters of Cortland County, their political debate for the mayoral candidate for the city of Cortland, Bruce Tytler and Scott Steve. Thank you both for being here. Thank you to our moderator, Brian Williams. The Cortland Voice, our role in this, being that we have the biggest social media following for news media in Cortland County, we wanted to make sure that everyone is able to have a chance to be able to hear this. So whether it be through Facebook, whether it be through Twitter, later on today, they'll be able to get it on YouTube. We just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to get to that. We believe in getting the news out to everyone free, no cost, and we want everyone to have access to it. So thank you again for allowing us to spread the word and let both of their voices be heard. And we look forward to a great event. Thank you.
Thank you for your collaboration. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League works to increase understanding of public policy and influences public policy through education and advocacy after intensive study. The League does not support any political candidates nor any political parties. Membership is open to those 16 and over, regardless of political affiliation and gender. We do have male members of the League. There's no membership fee for students. For membership information, you can email lwvcortland@gmail.com. So thank you to Joe Schaefer and Dottie Fowler, our chairs for voter services, for laying the groundwork for the forum. Questions were contributed by League members and the public via email. They were screened by League members and John Suarez, the director of the Institute for Civic Engagement at SUNY Cortland, to assure relevance and avoid duplication. Our moderator is Brian Williams, a professor in the Political Science Department at SUNY Cortland, who has the discretion to prioritize questions where necessary. I now turn the program over to Brian Williams. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Thank you, Sheila. Good morning to the candidates, event organizers, and the viewing audience. It's great to be with you today. As Sheila mentioned, my name is Brian Williams, and I am an assistant professor at SUNY Cortland in the Department of Political Science, where I've been teaching classes primarily in world politics and comparative politics since fall of 2017. I'm very pleased to be moderating this morning's forum and would like to thank the League of Women Voters and Cortland Voice for this opportunity. The candidates with us today for Cortland's mayoral position are Bruce Tytler, Democrat and currently third ward council member, and Scott Steve, endorsed by the Republican, Conservative, and Unite parties. Just a few words about how we'd like the procedure to go. Each candidate will make an opening statement of 2 minutes. Sheila Cohen, the timekeeper, will hold up a yellow card after 1 minute and a red card when the 2 minutes are up. After opening statements, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions. The timer will hold up a yellow card after 30 seconds and a red card when 1 minute is up. At approximately 10:40, possibly a bit over, candidates will make closing statements of 2 minutes each. The forum will end at approximately 10:45, although again, we may be a bit flexible about that and go over a little bit. and candidates running for seats in the town of Homer can be seen on the screen at 11 a.m. afterwards. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to go ahead and begin this morning's forum discussion. So at this point, I'll invite each candidate to make their opening statements, beginning with Bruce Tytler.
Thank you, Brian. And I'd like to, good morning, folks, first of all. And yeah, we had some technical glitches there, and I guess that's just the world we live in. My computer wouldn't let me turn the volume on, so I had to go to my wife's laptop. So let me start by thanking the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. I appreciate it. And Cortland Voice for streaming it so people can stay safe and tune in if they wish. And I'm running for mayor of our city because I believe leadership matters. And I believe leadership is about having a vision and communicating that vision and surrounding yourself with talented people who share your vision and want to help with the hard work needed to make it a reality. I won't be able to do it by myself. I'll need your help, folks. Leadership is not the same as management. Now, being mayor does require some management skills. The mayor has oversight of all city departments, and you can be certain that I will provide that oversight through working closely with our department heads. I've had numerous opportunities to interview people for leadership positions, and we would ask them, what do you plan to do the first year? Always got a chuckle out of those that would come, and there was always one with a 25-point plan of what they were going to do the first day. They hadn't even set foot in the building yet, and they already thought they knew everything that had to be fixed. That's not leadership. My father once told me that if any job worth having takes a year to learn, and I've discovered over the years he is right. It takes time to know the people you're working with and to listen to what they have to say. I've been able to listen to people and observe what they're doing for over a year now. And I have 3 issues I would address immediately. The litter, especially downtown. We will provide a consent agenda for every regularly scheduled common council meeting. And we will create a quality assurance survey so that you folks, our customers, can let us know how we're doing every time you have an interaction with a city employee. Thank you for listening. Let's get to it.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. And next up, we have Scott's opening statement.
Yeah, good morning, all. Thank you for the League of Women Voters, Brian Williams for hosting this, Bruce Tytler for serving as mayor in the past and alderman, and certainly the Cortland Voice for hosting this. You know, who is Scott Steve? I'm a local businessman that creates ideas for businesses and to solve their problems and deal with their, from their employees' problems to logistics solutions, and whether it's building or space solutions as well. You know, the attention to detail and planning are key to doing those items. So I go into businesses that maybe I don't know much about their type of business, go in, study it, get it rolling, and get it turned around to where it needs to go. You know, I have 5 children. I live here with my lovely patient wife, Shelly. We have 5 children that are here. They all live in the city. I decided to run because my oldest daughter and her husband purchased a property in the city, and the taxes were higher than the mortgage by quite a bit. And trying to figure out their finances and how to handle it was a huge part. Then in studying all the issues that we have in the city and looking at the different ways and roads and infrastructure problems that we have, trash to all the kind of issues that we have that we're dealing with, looking at ways that can be studied and ways that can be done. You know, I put together that elaborate condensed plan that would be addressing every one of those issues. And you can multitask and take care of those issues by doing those as well. And I think the financial aspect of the seniors that have limited incomes that are tightened in their incomes, and it keeps getting higher and higher, becomes a problem for all of us. You know, we have implemented taxes or levies that are done in the sewer district that were never even had public hearings. I think open government is an important part. We have a fire contract that was ratified and we don't even know what it's about. I think those are issues that we need to deal with, and we need to be open government and be able to work together to make these things happen. That's my part of my plan and what has to happen, and I think that's where we need to go. But thank you.
Okay, thank you both for those opening statements. What I'd like to do now is to proceed into a series of questions that I have for the candidates. And as was mentioned in the notes on the procedure. If each candidate could keep their responses to about 1 minute, that would be ideal. I'll start with some general questions. Number one, what are the 3 top issues facing your constituents in order of priority, in your view, and what would you like to do to address them?
Who do you want to go first?
Yes, Bruce, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. I would say the top 3 would be infrastructure. And this is why I'm running for mayor. We need to continue our infrastructure projects. We need to maintain safe, vibrant neighborhoods. Downtown is very important, but so are the neighborhoods. And I want to make sure we have equity for all so that everybody can take advantage of the best of our community. So I would say those are the top 3: infrastructure, equity, and neighborhoods.
Thank you. Scott, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think, certainly taxes are number one as far as financial aspects would need to be addressed in the city. I think that would be one of the biggest priorities that did happen. Obviously, infrastructure, our roads are in very difficult situation. We have 45 miles of roads in the city of Cortland. If in 1999, the mayor had put 2 miles of roads improved since then in a plan, our roads will all be done by now. And I think that's an important factor, that we need to have a good plan and a good aggressive plan instead of tearing roads back and forth apart again. Obviously, the quality of life issues from our animals to our vets to our the trash to our signage to our, the extra truck traffic on Tompkins Street that I don't think needs to be there. We should divert that truck traffic off of Tompkins Street, get it on 481 and around the city so we don't have that noise, congestion, and everything else to be that way. And certainly zoning issues are as well an issue in our city.
Okay, thank you. The next general question I have is, what makes you qualified to be mayor? Specifically, what qualities, skills, public engagement, and experience do you bring to this position? Bruce, if you'd like to go first again.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've done the job, so I know the job. And secondly, I spent 9 years as a high school principal. So I'm very familiar with and making do with limited resources. You do what you can. I have the skills. One of the things that I'm very capable of doing, and I think this is an important leadership skill, is building a consensus. And like I said in my introduction, you have a vision of where you want to take a school or a community, and communicate that vision. And you surround yourself with great people that share the vision and want to do the hard work with you and make it reality. And I've been very successful at doing that. So I would say my experiences and my ability to create a consensus are 2 of the biggest things that qualify me to be mayor.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, as past chair of the legislature, that's certainly a huge budget, and be able to handle that. I can access the Munis system and know how to run the Munis system, which is a governmental software program, to be able to access all the budgets. That's a huge asset. I've had extensive FEMA training for the floodplain management and some of those other issues, and continuing ed programs for the zoning board as zoning board chair. Know what our issues are, know the buildings and the structures and what we have to do with our density problems and our other issues within our city alone. Certainly active in redevelopment and rebuilding downtown and all the issues that in the buildings and structures. I can multitask in many different things. And with the downtown improvement of the roads that's coming up, certainly my background is by far none to knowing all the, I'm licensed sewer, electrical, architecture, and national programs. So I think I can handle that with no problem. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay. By the way, I'm going to mix up a little bit which candidate goes first, just for balance. So next, I'd like to move on to a couple questions about city governance, and perhaps Scott, we'll begin with you with this question. A recent editorial in the Cortland Standard argued that oversight is the responsibility of the mayor as well as the Common Council. Where do you think responsibility lies? What would you do to promote oversight as mayor?
Yeah, I think a huge problem and a huge asset, a thing that needs to happen as far as oversight, is the financial oversight. When I was chair of the legislature, the county got nailed for not having oversight of that prior to me coming in, and we had to fix that. And I think we're in the same boat. There needs to be an agenda item on the Common Council agenda, just talking about finances. They've had one financial report so far year to date. They're supposed to have a report every month on the levies and what the levies are doing, what they're doing. That's a public responsibility. They don't have any idea what they are. We're taking finances from, overinflated numbers of maybe, or just taxes, increased taxes, and buying trucks that should be on budgetary items. I think those things we're being reactionary. We're not being proactive. And I think it's up to the Common Council and the mayor to make sure those finances are where they are.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Bruce, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure. First of all, I disagree with much of what Scott said. The charter says we're supposed to have quarterly reports, but beyond that, I plan to, when I get elected mayor, I plan to have a consent agenda on every regularly scheduled meeting. We used to do that in my first go around, and I think that's important. So that's one of the first things we're going to do. Before I was elected mayor, there were issues. The comptroller, rightly so, called the city out on that, said, hey, you have to fix some things. While I've been on the Common Council, we have responded to every single one of those issues, and we have resolved those issues. They won't be happening again. And I think being mayor is definitely have to be having oversight on all of the department chairs, and I will work regularly with them to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. They don't need to be micromanaged. They need to be allowed to do their job. And we have some fine department heads. They all know what they're doing. They're terrific. And for some reason they're not able to do their job, then we'll talk about exit strategy, but they don't need to be micromanaged.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. So the next question is related to that one. And maybe we'll start with Scott again for this one. What actions would you take to make city administration and finances more transparent and accountable, and to engage the public more in these processes?
Yeah, again, I'll go back, almost answered it last time, but I think, we had 31 resolutions as of the end of August that were not even on the agenda. They were just not listed as agenda items, and they were voted on and made resolutions afterwards. One of them including raising trash bag fees. That should be a public hearing item, and certainly it should be at least on the agenda, if nothing else. They should be open discussions and open government to be able to talk about that. Great detail should be put into every meeting to be able to have all the answers that people should be able to see from the public, whether it's Zoom or otherwise. They should be able to see that data electronically or otherwise. I think the community needs to have some kind of idea and stop having apathy so they can get a better clue of what's going on. And I think that's by education. I think it just gets too overwhelming to be able to see what's going on and not be able to see all the details that are necessary.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, would you like to respond to the question?
Well, I think I responded to it partially. We would have a consent agenda on every single regularly scheduled meeting that would explain all the bills that have been paid and what's been paid, and that'll give the council people a chance to look in more detail on a regular basis, and they can call anything into question that they want to. So I think that would be a huge part of it. We have a budget meetings. People can certainly come to our budget meetings. As far as transparency and openness, one of the things that came out of this pandemic is a positive, and there aren't a lot of them, but one of them did come out of this pandemic, is now we can Zoom these meetings, and people can sit at home and watch and tune in and see what's going on if they're taking interest in it. So I think we're already on that path, and we'll certainly be looking for more ways in the future if I'm elected mayor. And the big one will be the consent agenda. That will give people a lot more information on what's going on in the city.
Okay, thank you both. I'd like to move on next to a couple questions about redevelopment and revitalization in the city. With regards to the 2017 $10 million downtown revitalization grant, what are the top priorities for using these funds in your view? For example, the building redevelopment program might be one item. And Bruce, maybe we'll begin with you on this question.
Well, a lot of that has already been established by the state. That was reviewed months and months ago, and they gave the thumbs up or the thumbs down on many of the projects. The city got $5.5 million for public projects. The public sector, the private sector, got about $4 million. And all those folks have to also have some skin in the game. So most of this has already been decided, Brian, and we will be going to a two-way Main Street, which I have been talking with Gary Van Gorder and others, and they had numerous meetings on this, and it was, the consensus was, yes, let's do that. And communities that have done that around the country are glad that they did. So that's probably a good idea. And we're going to be replacing the water mains. We're going to be fixing the sewer lines, the stormwater, new sidewalks, lights. It's going to be a whole different look for downtown. And most of that is already in the pipeline, and we'll be starting the construction season 2022.
Okay, thank you. Scott, would you like to reply to that
Brian,
question?
do you mind repeating that question, please?
No, I don't mind. With regards to the 2017 $10 million downtown revitalization grant, what are the top priorities for using those funds in your view? For example, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I agree. I think some of that has been predetermined. The two-way Main Street part of it has all been predetermined and been written in that grant to be that way. I'm not a fan really of that two-way Main Street. I think that's going to create some difficulties on its own. So the public education piece of that's going to be a huge part as far as people backing into their streets and trying to unload vehicles and trucks and to deliver to all the even more downtown. I've done some projects through the DRI grant, and we're working to do that. And I've designed numerous of them, trying to make them handicapped accessible and try to help everybody in the community. I think the priorities need to be obviously our infrastructure. You know, we have storm drains that are and sewer mains that run into the storm drain and run right into the river without filtration. I think we need to get that stuff fixed. We got sewer mains broken. I think, but with that, the DRI project, we need to make sure that the dust is under control, the parking patterns are better, and we can't have long drug out projects such as Clinton Ave or Oswego Street. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question also concerns redevelopment and or revitalization. Specifically, what steps would you take to keep young adults from leaving Cortland or to attract young adults to live in the city? For example, do you support SUNY Cortland's home ownership program, which offered $4,000 to encourage full-time SUNY Cortland employees to purchase homes in the city? Is there any other things the city could do to achieve that goal? And Scott, perhaps we'll begin with you with this question.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I support that home ownership program. I think that's awesome. I think it's great. I'd love to see all of our local police, fire, everybody live in our city and try to gain that access. I mean, I think Tim's a good example of somebody that's an alum that's back in our community. I think there's a lot of good ways by making the students feel part of it, to make that young youth come here and make them embrace our community and realize how great it is here. Well, a lot of them figure that out once they're here. There is a lot of success stories that way. But I think, as I led off, one of the reasons I ran was because, it's so difficult. The tax rates are so difficult to do it. But I think entrepreneurship, businesses bringing into our community, opening those things up. McNeil's have brought a lot of young people that are young professionals into our community and getting them to live here and stay here, but making houses affordable and nice would be a huge priority. And there's several ways to attack that task as well.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, would you like to reply to that question?
Sure. I fully support the SUNY program. I'd like to see it expanded. And we're in the process of doing some of the very things you're talking about in terms of retaining people here. Part of it is we need to pay more attention to the neighborhoods and some other factors. And we're going to build back better. For instance, the Parker project is a good project. I fully support that. And the only thing that held me back before was making sure the city wasn't going to be responsible for the millions that are going to take to do some capital improvements there and operate it. But that's all been resolved. So those organizations are going to get together and they're going to make this happen. They're going to come up with the funds. We're going to build back better sidewalk programs. We're going to create a grant, $100,000 in 2022, and we'll let people, single and two-family owner-occupied, can borrow money to fix their sidewalks, and we'll match them 50-50. We're going to have another Build Back Better home repair program in 2022 and 2023, and hopefully beyond. we're going to have $100,000 a year and let people borrow up to $5,000. They can pay back over 5 years at a very low interest rate. And that'll help people with fixing their homes. So, and of course, economic development. And Sheila's giving me the wave off, so I'll stop.
Okay, thank you both. I'm going to move on next to some questions about city services and utilities. First, what reforms, if any, would you promote for Cortland's public transit system? And Bruce, perhaps we'll begin with you on this one.
Well, that's a county issue. Transportation is a county issue, so I would have to work. I don't have a lot of specific details on that particular issue. I've been focusing on other issues, and but that is a county issue, and I think it's very important for the mayor to be working with the county, and that's something I would look forward to. Whoever is on the chair of the county in 2022, I would be working with them to see, first of all, what exactly the issues are that are causing all the problems and how to resolve them. Some of it's going to be a resource issue. It's great to have all these plans to fix things, but it takes resources. So you really have to focus on the priorities and provide the services that the people want and need.
Okay, thank you. Scott, would you like to reply?
Yeah, I think here's where my experience as county chair comes in handy. I understand the bus system very well and how it works and what the county's responsibilities can be and what they can do and what they can do to help provide for the city, such as, maybe a bus routes to help, the after hours driving, but the medical, covering all the medical facilities, more trips out to Walmart. So people aren't trying to schlep out all the way out there from the city into shopping out to Walmart, bringing people from outside into the community as well. But I think being able to get their medical treatments is the most important part, and be able to cover all the areas that we need to have for transportation is going to be an important factor that we can utilize the Cortland transit system with. And then I also think, just safe driving and keeping out of congested areas at congested times would be a consideration that I've heard some people communicate with concerns with.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is with regards to recyclables and waste. What will be your approach to Cortland City's recyclables and waste? For instance, would you try to maintain the blue bag system? Would you support a municipal food waste pickup, for instance? And perhaps we'll begin with Scott on this question.
Yes, again, when I was county chair, we had a very active and very aggressive recycling program. I think recycling is a huge part of keeping trash out of our landfill. That's all changed, and things have changed back and forth each way. I think it becomes difficult for people who have been discussing when I go door to door and talk to people. They've been talking about the glass and the plastic, which week is which. The trash bags are a concern. They keep getting smaller and smaller and more expensive. I think it's just another way that we're charging people. There's many other municipalities. I don't believe in trying to recreate the wheel myself or trying to not have answers, but many other municipalities have good solutions. Unfortunately, we're late in the game. They just started talking about this at Common Council just the other day, and the contract's up at the end of this year. So it's difficult to you're negotiating from weakness instead of strength. So now they've got to try to do that. But if I completely do not like to get rid of the blue bags and make it so it's that way, and create compactors downtown for the community businesses downtown to have a cheaper and less obtrusive way of getting rid of their waste.
Okay. Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, we are having conversations about whether we want to overhaul our entire trash and recyclable program. Part of the issue is, for many years, many countries, including ours, could send our recyclables to China, and there was a market there. And China, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, said no more. So there's not a huge market for recyclables like people think there are. And that's an issue that everybody is dealing with. Now, the glass, we do have a use of the glass. We can crush it and we can use it up at the landfill. So the glass is being, in a sense, reused. The blue bags were started as a way to get people to recycle, because you were paying for what you were throwing in the trash, whereas before everybody was, subsidizing. Essentially, our taxes were subsidizing whether you had one little bag of trash or six bags of trash. You were subsidizing that person. I shouldn't say bags, but garbage cans back then. you were subsidizing that. So it was a way to sort of make it, you create the trash, you pay for it. So in that sense, the reason it was created was good. And we have to probably step back and think about that a little bit. Is that still a useful model or not?
Okay, thank you both. I have just a couple more questions with regards to city services and utilities. Next, what are your thoughts with regards to the city's water systems? Are there any reforms that you would advocate in that regard? And Scott, perhaps we'll begin with you.
Yeah, on the city water itself, not the sewer, I assume you're just specifically talking the water?
It could be either, whichever.
Okay.
You find.
Well, in the water system alone, we have so many leaks in our infrastructure, which is destroying our roads from underneath and just eroding it, that our pumps are running 22 hours a day. They're nonstop shutting off. We're losing about 800,000 gallons a day, which is not, being eco-friendly. I think we need to pay attention to those details. And that's where I think we should be spending our monies from our COVID to be able to keep our costs down. Our sewer, same thing. And we're going from our sewer, we're going from a 5 million gallon intake to a 22 million gallon intake when it rains. That's certainly a problem with our infrastructure. And then we're being taxed outside of that with levies from both of them for improvements. And it's been going on for decades and we don't even know where that money's going.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, just about everything Scott just said was totally irresponsible. We know where all that money's going. The water user fee pays for the water department. The wastewater user fee pays for the wastewater plant. By state law, they have to pay for the services that the city provides. We provide admin services. We still have to reply to, if they have a fire someplace, we're going to respond to that. So those user fees are paying those two departments. And we do have, and Scott's right about this, and everybody knows this, we do have issues with leaking water pipes, and there are sewer pipes that we're going to have to slip line and things like that. And we're working on those as we can go. It's expensive, it's not like it's free. So we're looking at areas where we can solve the leaks, and our pumps are not running 22 hours a day. And when it heavy rains, we might occasionally get 22 million gallons through there. But our permit is 9 million over a month, and we rarely go over that as far as they average it for us. And so, I mean, the permit says 9 million gallons on average. We rarely go over that.
Okay, thank you both. For the final two questions I have concern public health and the environment. First, in your view, what should the city do to combat the spread of COVID-19, more recently the Delta variant? And what authority does the city have to take such measures? Bruce, perhaps we'll begin with you on this one.
I think the first thing we need to do is continue to communicate public service announcements about why it's a good idea to still practice the CDC guidelines. Keep socially distanced, don't go to large crowds. We were back to wearing the mask. It was nice this summer. We had 0 cases for a little while, but this pandemic is still here, and it's real. And we also need to do everything we possibly can to get people to get vaccinated. That's really, when I read what the experts say, that's really one of the biggest things we can do to stop this pandemic. I would also, and I've been asked the county for over a year now, if you go to other counties and you log on, you can see how many towns have so many cases. I'd like to see, where are all these cases? Are they in the city of Cortland? Are they in a different municipality? And then we can start to target those areas and try to get those numbers down. The county will not release that information, and I don't know why. Others do. So that's what I would keep hammering on.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I agree that with Bruce, that we need to basically educate. We need to work with our downtown businesses where we have those likelihood of the higher exposures to make sure that they keep track of how many people are in their buildings and going in and out, and make sure that we're doing it responsibly and safely. Obviously, stay with the CDC guidelines. But other than that, I don't know what else the city has responsibilities to be, other than educate and try to get everybody to work towards what needs to happen and try to keep everybody safe.
Okay, thank you both. The final question, with regards to the 5 proposals on the upcoming November 2nd ballot, What is your position on ballot proposal number 2, right to clean air, clean water, and a healthful environment? And I'll read the proposal language for you as follows. The proposed amendment to Article 1 of the New York Constitution would establish the right of each person to clean air and water and a healthful environment. Bruce, perhaps we will begin with you on this one.
Well, yes, obviously, I would be in favor of the clean air and water. I haven't studied those proposals in depth yet, Brian. I will before Election Day. So I'm going to be short on that because I want to go back to something from an earlier topic about the transports, etc. I don't know that we have to focus so much anymore on getting people to Walmart outside the city. I think people in the city, there's really a new way of shopping now, and it's where a lot of the taxes are generated, and it's online. And one of the things we can really do to get some more resources in the city is we need to study how much of the online taxes are being paid right here in the city. We have a little mini mall on the top of this hill, and the college students are constantly buying stuff online and paying sales tax on it. And I think that we're probably creating more sales tax than we're getting back from the county. So it's a whole new model with the online, and meds can be now delivered online. You don't have to go to the drugstore to get your medicines. So, I think we need to look at that and more closely.
Okay, thank you. Scott, your thoughts about ballot proposal number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a huge asset in our community. We have great water. I mean, there's not a lot of people that can drink tap water out of theirs to do that. I mean, we need to protect that resource, obviously. And our fresh air, that's what's one of the great part about living in central New York. We really have wonderful air quality, although we did have some bad, poor air quality this past summer due to the fires coming from California and out west. But I think, those are certainly important factors and, that to do that. And I think to go back to the other part, we need to keep our business as much as we can local and keep these local businesses small and large within our community thriving. The city of Cortland's connected to all the other ones, and we need to keep giving it locally. Everything we try to do, we should be doing local business. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again, both of you, for your responses. I'd like to move on next to closing statements. And with regards to procedure, each candidate will be allocated 2 minutes to make their closing statement. And we can begin with Scott.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm releasing on my website a detailed plan based on all 17 departments. And they're all viable, realistic checkpoints that you can hold me accountable for. Accountability is my big words, and that's what I've always done, and that's what I like to do. Accountability is an important part. Sometimes it can be tough and for people, but you got to hold people accountable. We need to have a good plan in place, whether it's our road construction, like I said, 45 miles, not unsurmountable, to come up with a good plan and make everybody see that plan online, to know when we're going to address it, how we're going to address it, and make sure we fund it to address it. We can't have these last minute criteria rushes to try to fund a server in the middle of the year, or a dump truck trailer in the middle of the year, taking monies from there. We can't have comptrollers issues that are coming back that are saying that we're not keeping track of our finances. Last year, we had an independent auditor as well saying we used $490,000 in contingencies that we shouldn't have to use. We need to make sure that we cover all the bases as far as making sure that we're holding all the department heads and everybody accountable to what they need to do in the reporting actions, what they need to do financially, and doing it. And I agree with Bruce that there is a lot of good department heads, but I do believe there's always room for improvement, whether it's from anybody that's doing anything. And that's part of that accountability access that we need to all keep doing it. I think we can, by doing that, we can help reduce taxes. We can work on getting things more efficient. And ultimately, in the past, we've continued to go on the same track that we are on. I'd like to get some fresh ideas out there. And I think I can bring the leadership and experience from all my different venues of my facets of my life to the city to make it a better place and make the living, the quality of life better as it would be. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Bruce, concluding statements?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. coming out of this pandemic, I think it's really important for us to look to the future and build back better. And we have a plan to build back better childcare. We have a plan to build back better infrastructure. We're thinking years ahead. We're thinking about Groton in 2023. We're already looking at Homer in 2024. Possibly, we're going to do the DRI this year. We're going to build back better with a sidewalk program and help folks fix their sidewalks. We're going to build back better with a home repair program and give folks a chance for low interest loans to fix up the house. And if you think about it, if we put $100,000 in a home repair program and people borrow that the first year, that's $200,000 over 5 years. That's $1 million worth of home repairs. That'll make a big difference on what our community looks like. I want to build back better with the EO 203 reforms. We're going to make sure we implement those. And we're going to make Cortland the best version of itself that we can. Our best days are still ahead of us. And we can do this. Our plans, we can do this without raising taxes. And we have a plan in place to pay for these things. And so we are planning ahead, and we're going to continue to plan ahead. And I think the proof is in the pudding. And I've had experience at this job before, and I look forward to doing it again.
Okay, thank you. Just a few concluding comments. This concludes our forum with Cortland's mayoral candidates. I'd like to thank the candidates, Bruce Tytler and Scott Steve, for participating in this event, the League of Women Voters for organizing it, and Cortland Voice for making the event available to the public. In addition to these candidates, on the November 2nd ballot, you will find 5 propositions on which you can vote. Propositions 1 through 5 are explained in the League pamphlets available in libraries on campus and other locations in Cortland. If you email lwvcortland@gmail.com, that is lwvcortland@gmail.com, the League will send you a pamphlet. You can use the same email address to submit questions at least 2 days before the Cortlandville Forum next Saturday, October 2nd, at the same email address. Please join us again next week, October 2nd, for a forum featuring candidates running for office in Cortlandville. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. The live stream is going to keep going. Bruce and Scott, you both can log off. I'm about to add Liz and
okay. Take care. We'll do.
Elizabeth and Justin. So thank you both.
All right. Thank you.
And this, like I said, the stream is still going. We're not going to start anew. I'm about to admit, because we are live, Sheila, you are muted. I'm adding 2 people right now. They're coming on. And like I said, on Facebook, it'll all, their stream is still on, so we're still there. But while we're waiting for them to get on, if anyone wants to know any local news in Cortland County, the greater Cortland County, visit cortlandvoice.com. Once again, cortlandvoice.com. Good morning, Justin. cortlandvoice.com if you want your news free. And 24/7, 365 and a quarter. You know, every day we go leap year 2. So check that out. Welcome Elizabeth as well. I will stop speaking. I will pass it over to Sheila in probably like 30 seconds or so. It'll be 11, and then we can start right there. Sheila.
Okay. Welcome to the Homer Town Council Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cortland County in collaboration with the Cortland Voice. In light of concerns about COVID-19 and the Delta variant, we're hosting candidates via Zoom and streaming forums to facebook.com/Cortland Voice for the public. The forums will also be archived on YouTube for future viewing. We'll have a few words first from owner and publisher of the Cortland Voice, Tim Bennett.
Good morning, everyone. Again, it's Tim Bennett here. I'm the owner and publisher of the Cortland Voice. Our goal is to make sure that information and the news gets to everyone. We want it, first things first, we want it to be free to you. We want it to be accessible. We want to keep things on the lines of diversity as well, not just race, but LGBTQ, your wealth, your religion, regardless of it. We want you to be able to know that you have a voice, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to be heard, but also to get this information, and once again, free. I thank Sheila again for her willingness to partner with us on the lines of, her and the Cortland County League of Women Voters still run the operations of this forum, but we're allowing them to run it through our platform just because, they've been doing it many years, and we wanted everyone to have access to it. So thank you, Sheila, and there you go.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters before we get started with the candidate discussions. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. It works to increase understanding of public policy issues and influences public policies through education and advocacy after very intensive study. The League does not support any political candidates nor any political parties. Membership is open to those 16 and over, regardless of affiliation and regardless of gender. And we do, by the way, have males in our branch. There is no membership fee for students. For membership information, you can email lwvcortland@gmail.com. Thank you to Joe Schaefer and Dottie Fowler, our voter services chairs, for laying the groundwork for the forum. Questions were contributed by League members and the public via email. They were screened by League members and John Suarez, the director of the Institute for Civic Engagement at SUNY Cortland, just to assure relevance and avoid duplication. Our moderator is Brian Williams, professor in the political science department at SUNY Cortland. And Brian has a discretion to prioritize questions when necessary. I now turn the program over to Brian.
Thank you, Sheila. Good morning to the candidates, event organizers, and viewing audience. It's great to be with you today. As Sheila mentioned, my name is Brian Williams, and I am an assistant professor at SUNY Cortland in the Department of Political Science, where I've been teaching classes primarily in world politics and comparative politics since the fall of 2017. I'm very pleased to be moderating this morning's forum and would like to thank the League of Women Voters and Cortland Voice for this fantastic opportunity. The candidates with us today for Homer's Town Council positions are Justin Corder and Elizabeth Arnold, both members of the Democratic Party. Next, I'd like to describe some of the procedural ground rules for the forum. Each candidate will make an opening statement of 2 minutes. Sheila Cohen, the timekeeper, will hold up a yellow card after 1 minute and a red card when the 2 minutes are up. After opening statements, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a series of questions that I will mention. The timer will hold up a yellow card after 30 seconds and a red card when the 1 minute response time is up. At approximately 10:40, candidates will make a closing statement of 2 minutes. This forum will end around 11:45, although we may grant ourselves some flexibility there. And candidates running for seats in the town of Homer will be on the screen at 11 as they are now. With that said, I'd like to now begin our forum discussion. And so first, I'd like to give both candidates an opportunity to make 2 minute opening statements. And I will begin with Elizabeth Arnold.
Great, thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidate forum. My name is Liz Arnold, and I'm seeking your vote for Homer Town Board. It's important to participate in events like this to ensure that we public servants are accountable to the residents of Homer. So I plan to focus on 3 initiatives as a town board member. 1, a public plan for Homer's future. 2, transparency and communication. And 3, ensuring safety and tax revenue via sensible marijuana regulations. First, without an active and public comprehensive plan to manage sensible growth in the community, our town residents are in the dark about what goals our tax dollars are trying to achieve. I have led multiple teams to develop and execute long-term strategic plans, and I can do the same here by leading a committee of engaged town residents to review and update our comprehensive plan so it reflects the future that we want to see and the path to getting there. My second focus is on transparency and communication. The residents of the town of Homer have a right to know about pending decisions that could impact your lives and homes, so you can use your voice before the decision has been made. Right now, we find out about decisions afterwards. At Google, I led a team to revamp my group's internal communications operations, so team members were fully aware of upcoming decisions and meetings, and I can do the same here in Homer. And third, the town of Homer has a unique opportunity to increase its tax revenue by developing sensible pot regulations around dispensaries, while also seeking to limit public consumption. We will best ensure safety in our community by proactively preparing regulations and not waiting until after problems have occurred. It's an honor to use some of my professional skills to help the community I grew up in to grow and keep flourishing. And if you'd like to learn more about me and my campaign, please visit lizarnoldny.com, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Justin, would you like to take 2 minutes to make an opening statement?
Yes. And again, good morning, everyone, to our esteemed hosts at the League of Women's Voters, fellow candidates such as Liz, and those who are part of this forum for other offices, and those who are watching or who will watch in the coming days. My name is Justin Corder, and I am running for a seat on the Homer Town Council as well. My family and I have lived in Homer for almost 7 years, and when I look around Homer today, I see great potential for an extremely bright future. We've seen an explosion of youth and in diversity from even just a few short years ago. But when I look at our current town council, I don't see any of those changes represented. I see the same council year after year. I see maintaining the status quo, waiting for challenges to appear before considering how we can or how we should approach those challenges. I see zero transparency in the process of decision making. In that sense, we're always behind in our response, seemingly never prepared to act decisively. Whether it was taking over 2 years to grant approval for building a brewery in town, or now in delaying a vote on marijuana dispensaries until the last possible minute. Time and again, the current council is always reacting, not planning, not preparing. So the reason that I'm running for town council is to change that, to provide a voice for the new generation in Homer, a plan for today and a vision for tomorrow that is inclusive of our entire community, one that considers not just the challenges that we see today, such as poor transportation options for our seniors, over budget but poor quality bridge maintenance and infrastructure, but where we want our town to go. Most importantly, as Liz noted, a plan for what we can do today to be agile and responsive to that future vision, and get feedback from the community in terms of what that vision should be. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Justin and Elizabeth, for those opening statements. I'd like to move next into a series of questions for both of the Homer Town Council candidates, starting with a couple general questions. First, what are the 3 top issues facing your constituents in order of priority, and what will you do to address them? And we will begin this question with Justin.
Yeah, so I think number 1 would be the lack of a plan in terms of where's Homer going. It causes the sorts of delays that both Liz and I kind of mentioned in our opening statement as it relates to what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And that causes delays in terms of being able to get that plan in place and execute it on. Second would be transparency. The amount of effort that goes into just an average community member like myself today to be able to find out what we're doing, what the meeting covered, what the decisions were, it's all reactive. It's all finding out after the fact and not having a voice and determining what the decision should be. And then finally is the accessibility for different businesses, different community members. We mentioned seniors, we mentioned the marijuana dispensaries. there's a lot of these things that are just kind of open-ended. They don't get addressed. It feels like the status quo just continues and continues.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Elizabeth, would you like to reply to that question?
Sure. I think, as I mentioned in my opening statement, kind of the three issues that I definitely see are around transparency and communication, around the fact that we have a comprehensive plan, but the version I got has a lot of updates that haven't actually been shared publicly, as opposed to some of our neighboring, towns like the Village of Homer or the town of Cortlandville. Both of them have their comprehensive plan shared publicly on their websites. So it's a very simple thing in order to be able to communicate that to fellow residents. Also, I think another example of the transparency is there is at our next board meeting to be a vote on a local law related to solar issues that are happening in our community. But the only reason I found out is because I happened to notice a small little public notice. There's nothing on the website. There's no other communications that I've seen go out. So I think these are, continue to be examples where they're simple solutions. And it's surprising that we have elected officials who've been in office for years and have not actually attempted to try to correct that. So thank you.
Thank you both. The next general question I have, what qualifications would you bring as a council member in the town of Homer? Specifically, what qualities, skills, public engagement, and experience do you bring to this position? And for balance, I will allow the two candidates to go first. And Elizabeth, perhaps we will give you the first opportunity with this question.
Sure. So in terms of qualifications and skills, I am actively engaged in local community efforts in terms of I'm a member of the board of directors of our Zonta Club of Cortland, and have been for a few years, and participate in fundraising activities and also other types of support programs to support women and children in our local area. I'm also been a member of the Village of Homer Economic Development Committee for the past 2 or 3 years. And on that committee, we have done some work on engaging with the recent downtown revitalization initiative application that the Village of Homer put in. So in both of those instances, I've been able to be involved in the community and understand, the issues that are happening in our area.
Okay, thank you. Justin, would you like to respond to the question?
Yes. So primarily my background and expertise is engineering. I'm an engineer by trade, and the job that I currently have with a global worldwide software company is one in which I work with global corporations to assess their current state and build plans for their future state, which is very much aligned with what I want to do for the town here. I am much newer to the town than Liz, so my roots here are not quite as deep. That said, I think that providing that sort of skill set would be valuable for the community to be able to figure out where we are, assess the plan, assess the future, and then figure out what we need to do moving forward, how we can refine that plan to be as inclusive as possible to address as many issues today and tomorrow that we have in Homer. And that's what I do for a living, and that's what I'd like to do in the town.
Thank you both. I'm going to move on next to a couple questions regarding governance within Homer. First, with regards to town governance, what steps could you take to promote a more civil, collaborative, and productive procedures? And Justin, we'll begin with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it feels like all of these questions, they come back to the transparency and open communication, which we don't have. So opening up that transparency and opening up the communication, providing more than just town halls, which I know the current council does. But again, to a point that Liz had made previously, the ability to know what the council is actually discussing, to understand what their position is and what their plan for it is just non-existent. So to promote the civility, to promote the sort of open communication lines, would just to provide more than one mechanism to provide feedback, which is right now, if you can happen to attend a town hall, it would be getting feedback from the local community. It would be providing accessibility to what our plans are and what the thought process is behind those plans, and a forum for people to provide feedback outside of just an online Zoom call, for example, for a town hall.
Thank you. Elizabeth, your response?
Sure. I agree with Justin on the focus on this transparency and communication. I think, I'm sure that the folks who have been in office for a while feel that they have great background in understanding how to solve the challenges here. But as someone who grew up here and returned, I still am struggling to figure out how things have changed much since when I grew up here. There doesn't seem to have been much change, and it's been a long time since I was a kid. So to me, some of the very tactical things that we can do in terms of encouraging civil procedures is one, around this transparency and communication. Let's know what's happening. The town of Homer does not actually do virtual Zoom meetings, which I think in this day and age, regardless of COVID, it's something that can encourage many parents, elderly who are not able to maybe get to the town meeting, to be able to participate. And just simply updating the website and social channels can ensure that people know about these things that are happening.
Thank you. The next question overlaps a little bit with the previous one, again, on the topic of governance. Specifically, what actions would you take to make the administration and finances of Homer most transparent and accountable, and to engage the public? And Elizabeth, perhaps we'll begin with you on this one.
Sure. So in looking at other, towns, areas, many of them rely on their website. I point to the town of Cortlandville's website. Actually has been very useful in terms of, for me, learning about what's happening in our area, and also seeing how public they are with their information. So they have agenda minutes, they have agendas in advance, they have minutes after, they have the live streams and recordings. So if you want to be updated, and to me, this is where the more we can put some of that information out there, that will help engage the public. I don't believe the town of Homer has a Facebook page or Instagram or any type of social channel. And at this point, most of the towns in the area actually have some sort of social channel that would be a way to communicate decisions or information about administration or finance to the local residents.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Justin?
Yeah, I think another part of it, because I agree with everything that Liz said, I think I would add on to that is, a proper level of accountability as it relates to financing, which was part of your original question here. And that is, what are we spending money on, and what for? Again, you have to parse through individual meeting minutes right now to be able to find that sort of stuff. Things that people don't tend to have access to very easily because they're not online. So having some sort of social presence, multiple access points to be able to view what we're doing, but also to break it down into that sense, to help the community understand where we're investing our money and what we expect to get for those investments, rather than having to just do your own sort of self-investigation and dig through meeting minutes to say how much we spend on, shoveling for the sidewalks in the village or something along those lines. It's just not accessible, and it's not transparent, and opening that up through different mechanisms of data would be valuable to the average community member.
Great, thank you both. The next question concerns redevelopment and revitalization in Homer. Specifically, what are your thoughts about the large sports complex that was proposed in 2018 for Homer? Do you support funding that complex? And Elizabeth, we'll begin with you on this one.
Sure. As someone who was, as I mentioned, sat on the Village of Homer Economic Development Committee, I have heard and seen some of the research that supports why this makes sense for our community. I think that given what is happening with some other proposed sports complexes in our region, I'd love to be able to look back at that data again to make sure that that is still something that I think our community would want to bring here. I am someone who is supportive of economic development because I do think it will help bring tax revenue and bring jobs to our region and our particular town. And I do think that given all the redevelopment that is happening along Route 11, that an event or a location of that kind of scale would be something that would fit in with that region and help bring us additional revenue.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in short, yes, I supported that in 2018. I still likely would at this point in time, but as Liz noted, the world in 2021 is a lot different than it was in 2018, including some of the recent developments around other regional-based facilities. So it's entirely possible that looking at the economic impact would be different than it was 3 years ago. But what we'll need to do is go through that process. To answer your original question, though, yes, I did support that, and I would support it if the numbers made sense, if there was going to be an impact with where we want to see. And this kind of ties back to that plan. Was this economic development component for this facility part of a plan that we wanted to see in Homer? Did it have a defined outcome that we were looking for it to achieve, both from a revenue standpoint as well as from a community standpoint? Those need to be reassessed.
Okay, thank you both. Next, I'd like to turn to a few questions regarding services and utilities within Homer. First, what reforms, if any, would you promote for Homer's public transit system? Justin, perhaps we'll begin with you on this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need more robust public transit. I think we need more options and more routes out of the town, specifically for our senior community. We have a lot of services within Homer that are accessible by our senior community, but we also have some that are not. And without a robust transportation system, they're unable to get to places like pharmacies without having somebody maybe pick their medication up or take them there directly. So I would take a look at what the current routes are. I think that there's only one that goes down on Main Street right now. And how do people get access to that route? How do they get from where that route takes them to where they need to go if it's not the same point? There's a lot of different areas in which I think we could expand those types of services as it focuses on our senior community. They're an important part of our community and they need our assistance. So that would be where my primary focus would be on that front.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Elizabeth, your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I agree. As someone who grew up in Truxton, I am fully aware of what it is like to live far enough away that it's not easy to get into town unless you have a car or access to a vehicle like that. So to me, I think it is definitely something that's important for considering how to increase public transit, especially to some of the further areas in East Homer or other aspects of the town of Homer. And at this point, given my background as well as Justin's in technology, I think there are definitely ways that we can think about whether there's apps or other types of technological solutions that can help support that kind of development. And also partnering with organizations like Seven Valley to ensure that it's something that is fitting into other types of public transit system initiatives in the area. So it's not something that we're just kind of doing on our own. It's something that we can kind of hook into maybe something happening in other parts of Cortland County.
Okay, thank you. Another question here on town services and utilities. What will be your approach to managing the town's recyclables and waste? Is there any ways that the system can be improved in your perspective? And Justin, I think we'll begin with you again on this one.
Yeah, and this is actually an area that's particularly relevant and important to me because it's something that is important. And one thing that I would definitely look at is working with the county at large to improve our capabilities in terms of recycling things like glass or expanding the capability to recycle different types of plastic. My background is actually in plastics engineering. That's what I went to school for. That's what I have a degree in. So whenever I get notifications that I can only recycle PET bottles, not lids, not polypropylene, things along those lines, I want to understand what the facilities are like that we have for recycling and understand why we can't expand that to improve our capability for recycling other materials. Same thing goes with glass. My wife and I, we box our glass and we drive it to Tompkins County to recycle it because Cortland County doesn't recycle it. These are questions that need to have answers, and we need to put into place a plan to address these because they're simply, as Liz pointed out on a number of issues, these are problems that we shouldn't have and we need to address.
Thank you, Justin. Elizabeth?
Sure. I agree with Justin in terms of it's something that is important to me. I compost here in my backyard. I also, am semi-fanatical about ensuring that I am separating whatever I can in terms of my recycling. And for me, one of the things that would be super helpful is education initiatives of folks in the area, because I do think it can be really confusing, especially in the past year or two. The regulations and rules around recycling have changed multiple times. And so as someone who cares about it, I look that stuff up to ensure I'm doing the right thing. But I know that that's not always top of mind for all the other residents. So I would want to ensure that we're making sure that it's as easy as possible for others to recycle, and also understand the impact of, by recycling properly, we are saving the town money, we're saving your tax dollars, and again, and in partnership with Cortland County, that it's not something that we're ensuring that we're doing the right things for the community.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. One more on local services. What are your thoughts with regards to the town's water systems? What, if any, policy updates would you support in that area? And on this one, we'll begin with Elizabeth.
So I know last year, many of us who live in the village had all of our water meters updated because I believe they were outdated in terms of what they were tracking. I would probably have to do a bit more research on kind of the broader understanding of some of the water policy issues from a resident standpoint to ensure. But I know that was something that was implemented in order to be saving money and to ensure that there was no leakages in the system, et cetera. But I don't know if I have any additional information on that. And so again, but I would point to that I would want to have gotten more information from the town on what are some of those initiatives that they're working on for that.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Justin, your thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I'm definitely aligned here. I had lived in the village for 5 years, and I went through the process of getting the water meters up to date. And I mean, I think there's a general overarching idea of maintaining a high level of quality in our infrastructure. I certainly don't have the knowledge, again, back to the transparency part, about what the current system water setup is for the broader town of Homer. It is something that I would need to learn more about, but that ties back into it as an average community member. I don't know what the wide scale water situation is in the town. It's not something that's easily accessible to find out. In the village, I do know that it was quite positive, my experience there, and focusing on that sort of infrastructure is certainly relevant and important for the broader town as well. It can't be restricted to just the village. It's got to be, we are an entire town. The village is part of that, but there are others that don't live in the village that are part of the town that would need to be part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you both. The last set of questions I have concerns public health and the environment. First, with regards to the pandemic, what, in your view, should Homer do to combat the spread of COVID-19 and most recently the Delta variant? What authority does the town have to do so? And perhaps we'll begin with Justin on this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things, and a minute's probably not enough time, but I would say that number one, just general awareness and vaccine availability is the primary deterrent against COVID-19. We see that the bulk of cases and hospitalizations and deaths across the entire globe are driven by unvaccinated individuals. We have free and easy access to vaccines in our community and in our state and just driving awareness that they are safe. They've been delivered to over 6 billion people in at least one shot, with minimal adverse side effects is the big focus. In terms of the authority that the council would have, I'm unsure in terms of what that authority would be outside of maybe mandating masks in inside areas that are controlled by the town, or influencing local businesses to put relevant safety measures in place for visitors or customers.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Sure. I think I agree with Justin on the, I'm not sure on what the authority would be of the town in terms of how to be ensuring regulations, but I do think promoting a sense of well-being and ensuring that everyone feels safe to be participating in activities, to be participating and going to our local businesses and supporting them is something that I do think the town could be partnering with the business association or other types of local businesses to ensure that that sense of well-being is happening in our area. I do think the second thing is also promoting vaccine awareness and clinics. I know that there is or was an upcoming vaccination clinic that was going to be in the town of Homer. I didn't see any promotion of it by the town. I happened to see it shared elsewhere and then shared it on my Facebook page to kind of ensure that residents knew about it. And so again, this comes back to that transparency and communication that I would continue to see or expect.
Thank you. My next question concerns the potential for flooding. Specifically, are you concerned about potential flooding events in Homer? And if so, what steps would you support to prepare for such events? Justin, we'll begin with you again.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, with the effects of climate change, anybody that has driven around the bridge areas in Homer has seen that, especially in the spring and even lately in the fall, flooding looks to be a serious concern that's going to be popping up. So this goes back to the targeted infrastructure and focused funding for things that are going to be impactful and not to be reactionary, which we are right now. The last thing I want to do is not have a plan in place for addressing flooding and then have to figure out and scramble to do it after something has flooded. So yes, there would be a focus on developing a plan with local civil engineers or whatever it happens to take that would address what we need to do to keep our community safe and to keep damage minimized in the event of what will likely be an eventual flood.
Okay. Thank you. Elizabeth, your response to that question?
Sure. As Justin mentioned, right, like climate change is something that we are aware of. As someone who grew up in this area, I remember, seeing some flooding, but with this summer, with the wettest summer that we've had on record in forever, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was, with serious storms, there was huge flooding in our area. And I think, our highway department dealt with it as much as they could in the moment, but there was not kind of plans in order to address something that is continuing to now happen more and more often. And I do think, as we live in an area with a lot of agriculture, as someone who grew up on a dairy farm, I know that there are some concerns about what happens with flooding, and both from the farmer standpoint in terms of how is that affecting crops and the operations of their farms, but also in terms of how that runoff could be affecting our water supply, in terms of whether the fields are treated with any sort of chemicals, et cetera, and that kind of flooding could be affecting what is happening with our water supply. So I want to make sure that, again, we now know these things are happening, and we should be thinking about how do we prepare and plan for that.
Okay, thank you. And last question on public health and the environment. One of the 5 proposals on the upcoming November 2nd ballot is ballot proposal number 2, right to clean air, clean water, and a healthful environment. And the proposal reads as follows. The proposed amendment to Article 1 of the New York Constitution would establish the right of each person to clean air and water, and a healthful environment. What are your thoughts about that proposal? And Elizabeth, we'll begin with you on this one.
As someone who recognizes that, climate change is a thing that is happening, and as someone who grew up on a farm and really appreciates the access to nature and the access to clean water, clean environment, I do think I am in support of this proposal. Part of me would like to see more about what does that actually mean in terms of the right to have access to clean water. And I would then want, as our town, how do we translate that into regulations or policies around how to ensure that our area does continue to support access to clean air, water, environment. So as I mentioned before, around some of these flooding regulations, how are we ensuring that this is not damaging the environment? Maybe this is something related to access for recreational activities. So how are we ensuring that everyone in the area has access to parks and outdoor activities? But yes, I support that particular proposal.
Okay, thank you. Justin, your response.
Yes, I support that proposal as well. I think, as Liz noted, it's all in the tactics in terms of implementing the success. That's a fairly broad proposal. So it does come down to what are the policies that are put into place to ensure clean water? Is it ensuring, as she noted, around the flooding runoff? Is it ensuring emissions restrictions in terms of new businesses that will be in the town so that they are not polluting the air, so that we have clean air? There's a lot of different nuances in that discussion, I think, that could be expanded upon significantly. But I completely support that amendment, and I support it because it does provide the broad flexibility to allow communities at a local level to define what that means for each of their communities, to ensure that those things are present for their community, to ensure that their citizens have the clean water and the clean air that might be relevant one place where the circumstances are different in another town. So it gives some flexibility there, but I do support it, absolutely.
Okay, thank you both for your responses to those various questions. That brings us to the closing statements segment of the forum. And Sheila, I know that originally the plan was to have 2 minutes allocated for each. I think we may be a little bit ahead of schedule. Do you still want to adhere to the 2-minute limit, or perhaps grant them some flexibility to go over? Or yeah, okay, I'm seeing the head nodding. Okay, so we'll stick with that, 2 minutes each. And so as was mentioned previously, each candidate will be granted 2 minutes to make their closing statements. And Elizabeth, I'll allow you to go first.
Great, thank you. And thank you again to all of those who are watching this live stream and who submitted questions. I appreciate your participation in deciding who our local representatives should be. Thanks also to the League of Women Voters, to the Cortland Voice, to Professor Williams for continuing, to organize and support these nonpartisan events on behalf of our community. As I mentioned before, I plan to focus on 3 initiatives as a town board member. 1, a public plan for Homer's future. 2, transparency and communication. And 3, ensuring safety and tax revenue via sensible marijuana regulations. 1, New York State has already legalized marijuana, but it hasn't yet defined all the sensible regulations around its usage. And so we in the town of Homer have this unique opportunity to define our own sensible rules, which will help us increase this our tax revenue, while also keeping the community safe by limiting public consumption. Let's just not wait until after problems have occurred. 2, you can be better informed about the decisions being made on your behalf. And as someone fluent in social media and in communication strategy, I'm well positioned to keep residents informed, to gather your input on upcoming decisions, and then turn it into action. 3, we need an active and public comprehensive plan to manage sensible growth in our community so we all know what goals our tax dollars are trying to achieve, and I've led teams to develop and execute similar plans. As only the second woman to serve on the Homertown board in something like 200 years, I hope to bring new energy and strategic thinking to the area I grew up in and that has helped me succeed in life. This is my way to give back to my community. So please visit lizarnoldny.com to let me know what you think. And thank you again. and I humbly ask for your vote for me as your voice for local change, or for change in local government here in Homer.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Justin, concluding comments?
Yes. In closing, much like Liz, I first would like to thank the Cortland County League of Women's Voters, the Cortland Voice, and you, Professor Williams, for holding and moderating this forum and giving all the candidates an opportunity for their voice to be heard. It sometimes may seem like a small thing, but it is a vitally important way to ensure that all of the candidates can share their message, and it's necessary for true representative democracy to work, both at the local level and as you move up. Frankly, it is that exact sense why I'm running for Homer Town Council, is to provide a new voice for our town, a voice for a new generation in Homer, a voice for our future. In the almost 7 years that I've lived here, this community is one that my family and I feel will be our home for the rest of our lives. And I see that happening across town. Young families are buying houses, moving in. You're seeing this influx of youth. And we need people who will speak for the future we're looking to build in Homer. That doesn't mean we won't set about immediately tackling the issues of today. There are decisions that need to be made on marijuana, on sustainability, renewables, recycling, town infrastructure, bridges, flooding, everything we've talked about today. And arguably important as anything, caring for and assisting our senior community. These are areas which are essential that we act, but we do so with an eye towards that future vision. The problems of today do not lie on a parallel track with the future problems of tomorrow. So my goal is to be one of those voices for Homer's future, to use my skills and expertise in planning and executing to listen and understand the community's most important issues and to help build a robust plan to address those issues while maintaining that full transparency for the community on exactly what we're doing and why. Not just keep Homer great as it is today, but to build for a future we can all share in together.
Great. Thank you, both Justin and Elizabeth. Just a few closing comments on my part. This concludes our forum with Homer's Town Council candidates. I'd like to thank the candidates Justin Corder and Elizabeth Arnold for participating in this event, the League of Women Voters for organizing it, and the Cortland Voice for making the event available to the public. In addition to these candidates on the November 2nd ballot, you will find 5 propositions on which you can vote. Propositions 1 through 5 are explained in the League of Women Voters pamphlets available in libraries on campus and other locations in the area. If you email lwvcortland@gmail.com, the League will send you a pamphlet. You can use the same email address, lwvcortland@gmail.com, to submit questions at least 2 days before the Cortlandville Forum next Saturday, October 2nd. Please join us again next week, October 2nd, for a forum featuring candidates running for office in Cortlandville. Thank you.
And to everyone watching, for more local news, visit cortlandvoice.com. God bless.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to the candidates for participating, and for Brian for doing a fabulous job moderating, and for our collaborator, Tim, for making things public. Have a good day.
Stay connected. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.